Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in another episode with Adnan Rafiq. I'm your host at imentorcloud. Thanks for tuning in. I have another guest. You may have seen him before, another known SME or expert in the area of Microsoft 365 app and services. So I have an opportunity again to bring him on since I've been getting a lot of questions around how to become a cloud engineer, how to become a cloud architect, Microsoft 365 architect. So I have Tom Stensitzki. He's from Germany. And what I would want is Tom to please introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for the opportunity to being on your show again. So my name is Thomas Stensitzki, and I'm an MVP in the category for Microsoft 365 apps and services, which is the current naming of that category. And my expertise is in the collaboration and messaging field, or in more detail, Exchange Server, Exchange Online, Exchange Hybrid, anything in between, and Microsoft Teams. And I'm an MCT lead for Germany, and I do train courses for on-site or remotely for even these fields of expertise.
One or two questions I've been asked every time, all the time, is people how to become a cloud engineer, how to become a cloud architect, what's in a day of life of a cloud engineer. So let's start with some of one who's seeking those career path.
So if you're seeking those career paths like a cloud engineer, the first thing that you need to do is get your hands on. You must do this on your very own. You need to get some kind of a tenant or a cloud platform, and you must achieve your daily stuff. You get to get accustomed to the doing, right? It's not only doing the theoretical pieces and learn about the stuff, you must use it. And you need to find your specialty, because if you say, okay, I do want to be a cloud expert, actually that means all or nothing, because cloud itself is quite wide when we talk about the technology and the required sources of knowledge that you need to have, right? You can even be a generalist, something about everything, or you're going to be a specialist where you know deep dive stuff about the topic that you live for, that you burn for, that you like, that you love, right? Because even though it's a job, it needs to make fun for your daily life, because otherwise, change your job, and the IT business is not the correct path, to be honest.
So people who are watching, they have to understand it's not an overnight thing. So they have to, it's a ladder. They have to take steps, baby steps, one at a time. And for those who are watching, you mentioned about set up your tenant and labs. So again, for those who are watching, you can just set up your 30 days trial in Microsoft 365 and Azure, or you pay some limited subscription fee. So that's the best way to build your labs and start learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I most of the time I do compare becoming an expert to, learning to drive a car. You do your theoretical stuff, you get your driver's license, but really learning to drive a car is something that happens afterwards, after you have your license acquired, or in that case, after you have achieved some kind of a IT certification, which is now a role-based certification and not one of those legacy product silos we name them. In the past, we had a certification for Windows Server, Windows Client, SQL Server, Exchange, and so on. But this is not the business or the reality nowadays. As an administrator, as an IT expert, as a subject matter expert, I do have to know my specialty. So that's the stuff that I do most, but I must know the dependencies to other services. Because nowadays, especially in the cloud, every service that you use when we stay with Microsoft 365 is in some way interconnected to other services, either with first-party services within Microsoft or even to third-party services for other applications, right? This is not the one product, it's the technology and the thinking. Cloud is something, it's not a technology. Cloud is a way of thinking, a way of working. It's something that you need to understand. It makes it then easier to navigate yourself to all the various content sources which provide some kind of information along the way and which help you to achieve your daily work.
So let's talk about somebody wanted to become a cloud engineer for 365. What would be the roadmap for that?
The roadmap for that would definitely be the base course, which are currently MS 100, 100 and 101.
Yeah,
Which
basic fundamental courses, basically.
the basic resources. Because if you prepare yourself for achieving that certification, you become in contact with all of the various aspects of Microsoft 365.
Okay.
And now that the Microsoft 365 certifications and the topic itself is now some kind of a legacy already because it's there. It's not the fancy new stuff. Let's say it's in comparison to Azure functionality ABC, right? So it's
Get it.
just there, right? But
Right.
without that, without Microsoft 365, stuff like accounts security, compliance, data loss prevention, it's already more than we had 10 years ago. It's
Yeah.
much more complex as it was 10 years ago. And to be honest, it's getting more and more complicated each day, each week, each month.
So again, just to extend what you just said, somebody wanted to become one of those areas. So first of thing, I wanted to educate the people. Hey, cloud engineer is just not about AWS engineer or Azure engineer or GCP. M365 is another area. There's a whole engineering role available. Companies who have been using Microsoft Exchange for the last 20 years, now they need people in that area. Companies have been using Microsoft Link, for example, back in days. Now it's Microsoft Teams, and Teams even much broader. So things have changed and people and expertise are required. So if somebody who wanted to start their career, you have to start the basic, understand the roles and permissions, basic stuff. Like think what you do. You are an expert in messaging. You are an expert in Teams. So you build those. So somebody has to have their career plan. Hey, this is where I want to see in the next 3 years and next 5 years. But in the beginning, this is very much easier today for someone to start and build their lab. For us, for you and I, we did not have that opportunity. We had to build the boxes to develop our lab for Exchange and all that stuff. Now somebody can go online and spin up the tenant, and they have a running lab in the environment. Simple and easy.
It's definitely as easy as this. So you just, so you set up your tenant in Microsoft 365 and voila, you do have your cloud environment, right? And depending on the licenses you use, as you already mentioned, you can simply start a tenant with a single user and a single license.
In the beginning, they don't need any premium licenses, basically. So you mentioned a good point about legacy stuff and on-prem. Legacy and the new stuff, right? You can literally start as fresh because there are some new tools. You can learn it. So, and as you go on, you can develop those expertise. So those who are watching, keep in mind, and there are a lot of room to grow, basically, as you just mentioned, security, compliance, inside threat risk. I mean, these features did not exist like 4 or 5 years ago.
Totally agreed. And I think there are three important components that can act as a source when you want to get, or if you want to become a cloud expert. First of all, it's the documentation by Microsoft. There is a reason that Microsoft renamed their Docs platform to Learn. So you now have learn.microsoft.com, which is a combination of the product documentation available and the components required for learning. So your learning path. That's why they combined this into a single point that you can access to find all the information you need from Microsoft. It's not only about the technology, but even about architectural topics as well. So you can use it for documentation and for learning. There's already two. But the third component, which is much more important, you do have to find your reliable set of sources on the internet. MVPs or any subject matter experts for the technology you are interested in, like blogs and other things. The product documentation, you should not forget the product documentation is not only providing you with the technical information, but it's a marketing instrument as well, at the very same time. Because sometimes you definitely will come to the situation that you think, okay, this is documentation by Microsoft. That's how they document it. I do perform all the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it doesn't work out as expected because you are interacting with cloud. The documentation is 6 months old. The cloud that you are interacting with is as fresh as of today. it behaves differently. And in the meantime, some people have already found out, what's the difference. So you do have to read and understand the other information available on the net. And the important thing is that's some kind of a competency that you definitely will, get familiar with over the time, because you need to identify if the source that you are interacting with is reliable.
No, absolutely. You made a very good point. So I was going back. So product documentation is on the Microsoft Learn, but the people like you and those who are more involved in the community, for them, the stuff these guys do, writing blogs and these things, is perfect for troubleshooting. If you get stuck, follow somebody. Somebody, somebody must have done it, or at least doing it.
Yeah,
And
all
the
right.
best way on the right.
Yeah, absolutely right. If stuff simply works, to me, this is sometimes boring. If things do not work as expected, then it gets interesting. It's not good for production environment, but to learn about new technologies.
A good resource for somebody to learn.
At this point, you get to familiarize yourself with the tech community side by Microsoft, which provides a lot of entry points depending on the technology you are interested in. And I highly recommend that you use the tech community using the same Microsoft account for logon that you use on the Learn platform.
Right.
Because in that case, you can keep track and keep a single list of bookmarking stuff.
And also somebody, when they sign in, and if you do the task, they also give you some scoring, a sort of a badge or something along those lines. So for those who are career starter, who are new, it's good for you to keep that, and you achieve those achievements can help you, of course, getting a job that you've gone through it.
Absolutely. And I would really encourage everyone not only to ask questions, but to answer a question, if you know the answer. It's good to share knowledge, because sharing knowledge is something that helps everybody to learn.
Yeah, I mean, there's a step. In the beginning, they will be just learning, and when they get to the point, they will be sharing back to the community. And that's the value. That's the beauty of that.
Absolutely.
What's new in Teams?
Well, the important thing about Teams currently is the upcoming release of Teams 2.0. Now in preview, which is a client which is double the speed of version 1. So, finally, we talked about the new Teams for years. At least this is how I feel about it. But the new Teams is around the corner. It's still in a preview phase, but you can test it. It is not fully feature complete compared to the current release of the Teams 1.0. Another thing is that it was highly discussed earlier this year is about Teams Premium, where you can customize your lobby experience, get additional monitoring and management solutions for your Teams devices. Teams Premium, to some extent, from my perspective, is pretty interesting for enterprises. I wouldn't say large enterprises, but for enterprises. I like the new premium features. I do not like the price, but that's a different thing.
So is there any specific feature you're excited about?
I'm definitely excited about the avatars, I must say.
Avatars. Tell me more about it. Yeah.
Because it's not only about, camera on off, about creating your own avatar, mesh avatar for Teams, as it's called. Definitely helps people to provide a visual attendance to a meeting and respecting their personal feelings. They do not feel well, attending to a meeting and showing off their face. Now, most of the time, you just have the option for camera on or off. And I know that there are companies that do have a policy which require that you turn on your camera during a meeting, which is not necessarily the right way to go, from my personal opinion.
It's a privacy issue.
It's absolutely. And the fun thing is that, so I'm part of that preview that is not an NDA, so I can talk about it, is that I can create 3 different avatars, and I can select the avatar depending on the type of meeting. So, casual or a more formal meeting. At this time, I do have 2.
So you have something
I can choose one.
Yeah. You have something to show.
And nevertheless, let's
hopefully
see
nothing crashes.
Yeah, yes, as always. But let's see how this is going to work out. It should switch over to an avatar in a second.
Oh
And
my
as you can see,
God.
this is my, this is even
What?
my formal one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice,
So
nice.
yeah,
Oh, so
and you
it's a
have
real
you have reactions you can select, which is, let's see, what can I do? Yeah.
perfect, man.
Yeah,
Awesome.
this is the funny stuff, isn't it?
No,
And
yeah,
if I do more,
this is amazing.
yeah, and if it's less formal, I switch over to that one.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you have an avatar builder.
So you are doing it all real time, switching back and forth. And
This is currently more, it's comparable to a dialogue, turning camera on or off. I'm currently can either use, so at this point, my video camera is off, right?
oh, I
So this
see.
is not a representation of the stuff that I do. Just Teams is recognizing that I talk, and that's why it's moving the character accordingly.
So previous one was the camera turned on when you were doing some
No, no,
gestures
no,
and
no, no, no,
no,
no,
not at all.
not at all. No, my camera is off, period.
So if you
This
move
is,
your hand, it would
yeah,
not
this is,
just
if
the
I move
face.
my hand, it's just me clicking some kind of the avatar actions.
Okay.
It's
So
just,
avatar is just is oh wow. Okay. So it's looking at your voice and because I could see your hands are moving, but just
no,
is your AI is doing it based on the conversation we are having.
yep, right. So it at this point, the avatar does not understand, does not know what I speak. It's just
Okay.
analyzing from the wording what kind of mouth action is required, for the pronunciation. This is just because I talk, and I do not talk.
Nice. Yeah, that's super interesting, man.
But it
Yeah.
still shows some kind of extra moving the
Yes.
eyes. Just it's not purely static because it would be annoying as well.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, and it just shows somebody not being on video, show the presence. So yeah, this is pretty cool. Now you
Yep.
can come back on the camera.
Yep. I am on my way. Wait. So here I am.
So today they have 3 avatars available maximum.
And, yeah, it just need to be
Yeah.
stored somewhere. And you do have an avatar builder app where you then, it's a walk-through dialogue thingy, which you can adjust afterwards, where you select your character, the avatar, skin color,
Hmm.
hair glasses, shape of your ears, nose, eyes, mouth, chin, whatever.
Yeah, perfect for the Gen Z,
Yes, period.
right?
Yes, it is.
So now let's move on to another topic here is something who want to see their career in the next 3 to 5 years or who are already systems engineer, network engineer, and they might want to transition their role. Who knows, right? So can we speak a little bit about that?
So me being a self-employed consultant, that's my daily work is not focused on a single environment, a single client. It's me transitioning my head. I call it pretty expensive context changes in my head, when you do have to switch between environment A, B, and so on. And when we talk about there are issues with M365 in general, and there's something that need to be solved for Exchange Online, there's something that need to be configured for Microsoft Teams. And my a day of work is for writing a concept for implementing a new feature or troubleshooting as a last line of support, as I call it. So I'm not doing any kind of first level thing, right? It's up to the clients who have some kind of a help desk, and they do categorize any kind of issues, and their local admin staff is handling the stuff. And if they do not find a solution, that's where they get into contact to me. But besides solving stuff or writing a concept and designing some kind of on-premises connectivity towards Microsoft 365, another important thing of the daily work is to share knowledge, something that we already talked about, and to get knowledge across to the administrators of a client.
So what you're saying
Yes.
is that you get to the point but at the same time, you are train the trainer kind of things, those who are systems and network engineers or junior cloud engineer companies. So for you, you're not only mentoring them, but you get paid. So somebody can get to the level like yours, and you have to achieve it, you have to earn it. So it depends how much you're serious about your career. I mean, the growth is always there.
Yeah, and I think there are two important things. First of all, I do not know everything. But I do have an idea where to find information about the stuff. And that's something
Absolutely.
that comes over the time. And if somebody asks you about something that you do not know the answer, do not know the solution, just say so. Do not pretend anything. Just say, I don't know the solution, but I will take a look and I will come up with a solution. At least I try to find information about this. It's
Yeah.
totally fine to say, I do not know the answer. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that there are people that say otherwise, but I believe, capacity is limited. It's totally okay to forget about stuff. It's totally human.
So now a little bit on to the business side of it, right? Of team or Microsoft 365 in a general, if you could share a couple of things.
The first benefit of Microsoft 365 is that it is highly integrated, seamlessly integrated, and from my perspective, I'd say it simply works. If it doesn't work as expected, then you broke something. It's not the service that broke something. It's from the operating system of your client devices. And I'm not only talking about the Windows device running Windows 11 or Windows 10, but I'm talking about iOS and other mobile operating systems as well. They simply work with the service, as we call it. What I really like, which I wasn't really aware that I liked it, is that the documents that I do work with on a daily basis, they flow from one device to another, right? I start editing something on my Windows desktop, then I start traveling, taking a train to some other place, and then I use my iPad to continue the work. And it's simply there. It works. Something that had some caveats in the past. Yeah. So I do not want to say that, for example, OneDrive was always working as expected, right? There had been issues in the past, but nowadays it simply works. I forgot about thinking about issues. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the SaaS, basically, software as a services, right? In that space.
Let's get back to Teams, because we had a extensive usage of Teams at the very beginning of those pandemic years, right? But back then it was primarily focused on we do need to have some kind of remote meeting solution. Period. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yep.
But all of those clients, especially a vast number of small and medium-sized businesses, now moved on extending their teams using first-party apps by Microsoft or extended them by third-party apps. And because they learned the benefit from having a single client, which is not email-based. So, right, we're talking about Teams, not of this thing called Outlook, to simplify their daily work, the daily tasks from a business perspective. So digitization, as you call it here in Germany, so the good old Digitalisierung, right? From moving from manual processes manual processes, paper-based stuff into the digital work is not only, I transfer 4 pages of paper forms into 4 pages of digital forms. No, this is not the solution. You should be smarter, right? You should find a way where you can utilize the additional functionality provided by your Teams apps. And another thing is creating your own custom apps for Teams, right?
Okay.
Using the Power Platform.
I see.
And this is something where there was a lot of hesitation in the beginning, but now it is used more and more.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just adding there, like, about the SaaS. The productivity has increased, right, a lot. And one thing I like is I'm most of the time on non-Windows devices, right? And I have the same experience which I used to have on my Surface, basically. So as you mentioned, we've seen those challenges before. Now things just work so seamless. One thing I wanted to add here or wanted to discuss is the basic tools available today in SaaS. I think when you stand up the tenant, the basic security comes in today. I think it's pretty good. Those best practices available like MFA, identity-based data protection, something you want to talk about a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we should definitely embrace everyone to use multi-factor authentication. Additional security is a win for your company because it's important to protect your intellectual property on the one side, and but at the same time, do not provide a complicated way for additional factors for authentication because the multi-factor authentication is pretty smart these days.
They have built-in controls around that, right? Location based and all. We can go on, but again, somebody who is deploying those teams, make sure the basic security and features available there. They have improved a lot on security. They have
Yep.
improved a lot of compliance as well. All these things were used to be just for the large enterprise, or it used to be very costly, and you need to have the expertise. It was very challenging. Now,
Yeah, absolutely. And if a company is new to using software as a service solutions like Microsoft 365, should be aware of the fact that your SaaS provider, in this case Microsoft, has an interest that you do not find too many hurdles, using that service. So the service comes with default configurations that let your users work. But you need to familiarize yourself with the default settings to make a educated decision on if you want to stay with the default configuration or want to adjust it to make it, yes, more secure, depending on your demands for your company and your intellectual property information that you want to protect. Default setting.
that's a very valid point. So know your business, engage an expert who can make sure those your requirements specific to it, because there is no one size fits all, basically.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure as a business, engage the vendor or consultant, an expert who can help you develop that architecture or infrastructure. So any closing comments, something you wanted to add?
If you're not into the cloud technology yet, go for it. Start using a trial tenant, which comes at no cost at all in the very beginning. And if you see that this is a kind of field of technology that you want to embrace, and that is something that you want to build your future on, and start learning.
Tom, thank you again. I really appreciate it for your time in Germany, different time zone, taking out this time for me on this podcast. And hopefully I will see you in the future ones with some more different topics. And people who are watching, you will find all the details about Tom, his blog on the description of this video when I publish it. And if you have any more questions for the future, let us know. Thank you and have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you.